What if I told you that one of television's most beloved comedies almost starred a completely different cast? That its biggest star was secretly 13 years older than anyone knew? And that a single phone call destroyed what could have been television history?
Did you deposit the quarter?
There's no place to put it.
I'm sorry.
Welcome back to the island, folks.
A 3-hour tour, a 3-hour tour.
But this time, we're diving deeper than the professor's latest invention. These aren't just fun facts.
Skipper, like that. Yeah, now lift the other foot.
Gilligan, if I lift the other foot, I'll fall.
These are the shocking secrets that reveal how close we came to never having Gilligan's Island at all. Before we set sail on this 3-hour tour of television history, I need you to do something for me. Look at that like button down there. Now, I want you to predict something. By the end of this video, you'll discover which cast member became a millionaire from a single contract clause that everyone else ignored. If I'm right, smash that like button. If I'm wrong, well, you'll still probably hit it because what you're about to learn will blow your mind. Trust me, even if you think you know everything about Gilligan's Island, fact number 4 is going to change everything you thought you knew about Mrs. Howell.
When a lady approaches or enters a room, a gentleman stands up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So grab your coconut radio and settle in.
Erica, all America is waiting breathlessly to hear about your adventure.
We're about to uncover the 10 most shocking secrets behind one of America's most iconic shows. And stick around until the end, because the bonus fact reveals how a last-minute betrayal left the castaways stranded forever, both on screen and off. Picture this. September 1964. America is about to meet 7 castaways who would become cultural icons for generations. But here's what nobody tells you. Gilligan's Island almost had a completely different cast, a completely different outcome, and might never have existed at all. Created by Sherwood Schwartz, this simple sitcom started in black and white before exploding into full color in its second season. But the road to that tropical paradise was paved with rejected stars, hidden ages, and behind-the-scenes drama that makes reality TV look tame. What you're about to discover isn't just trivia. It's the untold story of how a handful of decisions changed television history forever.
Skipper! What's wrong, Gilligan?
Oh, you should see it, Skipper. It's really weird and strange. It's got these things on the side like this. It's got an eye. It's got an eye like that. It's got 4 legs sticking in the sand like... Never mind that, Gilligan. Did you get its feathers?
Jerry Van Dyke, yes, Dick Van Dyke's younger brother, was Sherwood Schwartz's first choice for Gilligan. Picture that for a moment. Jerry Van Dyke in that little sailor hat, bumbling around the island with the skipper. But Jerry said no. Why? Because he had bigger dreams. He wanted to follow in his famous brother's footsteps and star in his own show, not share the spotlight in an ensemble cast. So when the Gilligan script landed on his desk, he took one look and declared it the worst script I'd ever read in my life. Instead, Jerry chose what his agent promised would be a surefire hit, a show called My Mother the Car. Yes, you heard that right. A sitcom about a man whose dead mother's spirit inhabits his automobile. Jerry's exact words, "I was looking for a hit, and this year wasn't it. Besides, my agent had me lined up for a guaranteed to last forever series called My Mother the Car." That guaranteed forever series lasted exactly 1 season. Meanwhile, Gilligan's Island ran for 3 seasons and has been in continuous syndication for over 50 years. Jerry later admitted, "I've had longer showers than that show lasted." The role went to Bob Denver, and the rest is television history. But imagine how different our childhoods would have been with Jerry Van Dyke as Gilligan. And here's the kicker. It wasn't just Gilligan that almost looked different. Carol O'Connor, who would later become famous as Archie Bunker in All in the Family, auditioned for the skipper role that eventually went to Alan Hale Jr. One casting session, 2 future TV legends, completely different career trajectories. After striking gold with both Gilligan's Island and The Brady Bunch, Sherwood Schwartz thought he'd cracked the code to television success. In 1974, he tried to prove it with Dusty's Trail, essentially Gilligan's Island in the Wild West. The formula was identical. Take a group of mismatched travelers, strand them together, and watch the comedy unfold. Instead of a tropical island, it was a broken-down wagon train. Instead of 7 castaways, it was 7 pioneers. Bob Denver signed on, playing the Gilligan-esque character Dusty. Forrest Tucker from F Troop took the skipper role. They even had their wealthy couple, their brainy character, their farm girl, and their bombshell. The problem? Lightning doesn't strike twice in the same place. Dusty's trail crashed and burned after 1 season, proving that successful TV isn't just about formulas. It's about that indefinable magic that happens when the right cast meets the right concept at exactly the right moment. But Schwartz's failure teaches us something important. Sometimes the most successful creators are the ones who understand that their biggest hits can't be replicated, only remembered. Here's something that will shatter your illusions. Half the cast of Gilligan's Island didn't want to be on the show. Let's start with Natalie Schafer, who played the wealthy Mrs. Howell. She only agreed to the pilot because it was filming in Hawaii, and she figured she'd get a free vacation when the show inevitably failed to get picked up. She never expected to spend 3 years pretending to be stranded on a tropical island. Then there's Tina Louise, who played the glamorous Ginger. She'd been promised that her character would be the central focus of the show, essentially the female lead around whom all the comedy would revolve. Instead, she discovered she was just one of 7 ensemble players, with no more screen time than anyone else. Tina felt so deceived that she spent the entire run of the series trying to distance herself from the role. She rarely attended cast reunions, refused to participate in most spin-offs, and to this day seems somewhat bitter about her association with the show. Even Bob Denver had reservations. He'd just finished a successful run as Maynard G. Krebs on The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis, another quirky, lovable character. He worried about being typecast as the bumbling sidekick for the rest of his career. But here's the beautiful irony. Despite their individual reservations, these actors created something magical together. Bob Denver himself later said that his chemistry with Alan Hale Jr. was the heart of the show, and that Alan was one of his closest friends. Sometimes the best art comes from artists who are fighting against their circumstances. This is the fact that's going to blow your mind, and I guarantee you've never heard this before. Natalie Schafer, who played Mrs. Howell, guarded her age like a state secret throughout her entire career. Not unusual for Hollywood actresses, right? But the truth was more shocking than anyone imagined. For decades, nobody knew exactly how old she was. She deflected questions, avoided the topic, and took her secret to the grave. It was only after her death in 1991 that documents were discovered revealing the truth. Natalie Schafer was born in 1900. She was 64 years old when Gilligan's Island premiered, making her 13 years older than Jim Backus, who played her husband. Think about that. While she was playing a pampered society wife, she was actually old enough to be a grandmother to some of her castmates. She was literally from a different generation. Born in the year 1900, she had lived through both world wars, the Great Depression, and the entire evolution of American entertainment. But here's my favorite Natalie Schafer story. Years after the show ended, she was having problems with her phone service. The phone company kept giving her the runaround, saying all their repair technicians were busy. Finally, frustrated, she told the receptionist, "Do you know who I am? I am the woman who played Mrs. Howell on Gilligan's Island." Within half an hour, a repair truck was at her house, and she spent the afternoon signing autographs for the entire repair crew. Even decades later, the power of that little tropical island could still work magic. Here's something that will ruin your childhood memories of that crystal-clear tropical lagoon. It was absolutely disgusting. After the pilot was filmed in beautiful Hawaii, production moved to a Los Angeles studio where they built an artificial lagoon for the show. What looked like a pristine tropical paradise on camera was actually a shallow, murky pool that couldn't be properly maintained. The water was only about 4 feet deep at its deepest point, carefully shot to look like a vast lagoon. But here's the gross part. They couldn't use chlorine to keep it clean because it would damage the equipment and props, so the water became increasingly murky and unsanitary as filming progressed. Cast members later described the water as pretty gross and not something you'd want to swim in voluntarily. But the water wasn't the only problem. The studio was located right next to a busy Los Angeles freeway, and the sound of traffic constantly interrupted filming. They had to carefully schedule shoots around rush hour because the microphones would pick up the sound of cars and trucks roaring past. So much for that peaceful tropical paradise. The reality was murky water, traffic noise, and the constant struggle to maintain the illusion of being stranded in the middle of nowhere while actually being in the heart of Los Angeles. It's a perfect metaphor for Hollywood magic. What looks perfect on screen often requires dealing with some pretty unpleasant realities behind the camera. In 1995, something magical happened that most fans never knew about. The cast of Gilligan's Island reunited for a very special episode, but not of their own show. They appeared together on Roseanne, and here's the beautiful part. They filmed it on the exact same sound stage where Gilligan's Island had originally been produced. Talk about coming full circle. But this wasn't just any reunion episode. Each cast member played a member of the Connor family. Tina Louise played Roseanne herself, Dawn Wells took on Darlene, Russell Johnson played Becky's husband, and in a moment of pure comedy gold, Bob Denver played Jackie. For Tina Louise, who had spent decades trying to distance herself from Ginger, this appearance was remarkable. She'd consistently refused to participate in Gilligan's Island reunions and spin-offs, but something about this tribute moved her to say yes. The episode was titled Sherwood Schwartz, A Loving Tribute, honoring the creator who had brought these characters to life. It was a moment of healing for a cast that had sometimes struggled with their association with the show. Sometimes the most meaningful reunions happen in the most unexpected places. Here's a piece of American trivia that will win you bar bets for life. Bob Denver, the actor who played Gilligan, is directly connected to one of America's major cities through his family tree. Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City, was named after James William Denver, the territorial governor of Kansas in the 1850s, and James William Denver was Bob Denver's great-great-grandfather. Think about the cosmic irony of that. A man who helped shape the American frontier has his legacy tied to both a major American city and a bumbling TV character who couldn't even get off a tropical island. James Denver was a serious political figure who played a role in the expansion of the American West. His descendant became famous for wearing a little sailor hat and getting bonked on the head with coconuts. History has a sense of humor, doesn't it? One can only imagine what the elder Denver might think, knowing that his family name would be remembered not just for political achievement, but for making millions of people laugh every day for over half a century. In the 1970s and 80s, turning popular sitcoms into Saturday morning cartoons was practically mandatory. Gilligan's Island got the treatment twice, with the second version, Gilligan's Planet, literally launching the castaways into space. But here's where things get interesting. The cartoon revealed the same divisions that had existed during the original series. Most of the original cast returned to voice their animated counterparts, but Tina Louise once again refused to participate. This left Dawn Wells in the unique position of voicing not just Mary Ann, but also Ginger, essentially playing both herself and her co-star. Gilligan's Planet was one of the last Saturday morning cartoons to feature an adult laugh track, marking the end of an era in children's television. The show only lasted 13 episodes, but it demonstrated something important. Even in cartoon form, the dynamics between the cast members remained the same. Some wounds never heal, even when you're drawn in animation. This story shows you why Bob Denver was beloved by his co-stars. He literally fought the studio to get his fellow actors proper recognition. In the first season, the famous theme song only named 5 of the 7 castaways. The professor and Mary Ann were lumped together as "and the rest." This wasn't just insulting. It was a sign of how the studio viewed Russell Johnson and Dawn Wells as less important than their co-stars. Bob Denver wasn't having it. He went to the studio executives and threatened to remove his own name from the opening credits unless Russell Johnson and Dawn Wells got proper recognition in the theme song. This wasn't just about fairness. It was about money. Screen credit affected residual payments, syndication deals, and future career opportunities. Bob Denver risked his own standing to fight for his friends. The studio, faced with losing their stars' cooperation, agreed to re-record and rescore the entire theme song for the second season. That's why later versions specifically mention the Professor and Mary Ann. It was a small gesture that had huge implications for how ensemble casts would be treated in future television shows. Sometimes standing up for others costs you nothing and changes everything. Here's the secret that proves sometimes it pays to be married to an agent. Dawn Wells, who played Mary Ann, was the only cast member who got rich from Gilligan's Island syndication success. At the time the show was cast, Dawn was married to talent agent Larry Rosen. When Dawn's contract arrived, Larry noticed a standard clause that limited her residual earnings to just the first 5 reruns. After that, she'd get nothing, no matter how many times the show aired. Larry advised his wife to request an amendment to that clause. The producers, convinced that Gilligan's Island would never have long-term success, agreed without much thought. Big mistake. While her co-stars were paid flat salaries and got nothing from the show's decades of syndication success, Dawn Wells continued to earn money every time an episode aired anywhere in the world. Gilligan's Island has been in continuous syndication for over 50 years, airing in dozens of countries and multiple languages. Those residual checks added up to a fortune. The lesson: always read the fine print and, if possible, marry someone who understands contracts. Here's the story that will make you angry and sad at the same time. At the end of Season 3, the cast received wonderful news. Gilligan's Island had been renewed for a 4th season. They were thrilled. Some cast members even bought homes in Los Angeles, planning to settle in for a long run. But then, at the last minute, CBS made a decision that shocked everyone. They canceled Gilligan's Island to make room for Gunsmoke. Here's the insulting part. The cast didn't learn about the cancellation from the studio. They didn't get a phone call from their agents or a meeting with executives. They found out the same way fans did, by reading about it in the newspaper. There was no wrap party, no final episode to tie up loose ends, no chance to say goodbye to characters they'd lived with for 3 years. The show just ended. This meant that Gilligan's Island ended on a cliffhanger, with the cast score the entire theme song for the second season. That's why later versions specifically mention the Professor and Mary Ann. It was a small gesture that had huge implications for how ensemble casts would be treated in future television shows. Sometimes standing up for others costs you nothing and changes everything. Here's the secret that proves sometimes it pays to be married to an agent. Dawn Wells, who played Mary Ann, was the only cast member who got rich from Gilligan's Island syndication success. At the time the show was cast, Dawn was married to talent agent Larry Rosen. When Dawn's contract arrived, Larry noticed a standard clause that limited her residual earnings to just the first 5 reruns. After that, she'd get nothing, no matter how many times the show aired. Larry advised his wife to request an amendment to that clause. The producers, convinced that Gilligan's Island would never have long-term success, agreed without much thought. Big mistake. While her co-stars were paid flat salaries and got nothing from the show's decades of syndication success, Dawn Wells continued to earn money every time an episode aired anywhere in the world. Gilligan's Island has been in continuous syndication for over 50 years, airing in dozens of countries and multiple languages. Those residual checks added up to a fortune. The lesson: always read the fine print and, if possible, marry someone who understands contracts. Here's the story that will make you angry and sad at the same time. At the end of Season 3, the cast received wonderful news. Gilligan's Island had been renewed for a 4th season. They were thrilled. Some cast members even bought homes in Los Angeles, planning to settle in for a long run. But then, at the last minute, CBS made a decision that shocked everyone. They canceled Gilligan's Island to make room for Gunsmoke. Here's the insulting part. The cast didn't learn about the cancellation from the studio. They didn't get a phone call from their agents or a meeting with executives. They found out the same way fans did, by reading about it in the newspaper. There was no wrap party, no final episode to tie up loose ends, no chance to say goodbye to characters they'd lived with for 3 years. The show just ended. This meant that Gilligan's Island ended on a cliffhanger, with the castaways still stranded on the island. The final episode wasn't designed to be final. It was just another episode in what should have been an ongoing series. In a weird way, this abrupt ending was perfect. The castaways remained forever stranded, just like they were supposed to be. But for the actors, it was a harsh reminder of how quickly Hollywood success can disappear. The show that had made them famous had vanished overnight, leaving them stranded in their own careers, wondering what came next. So there you have it. 10 secrets that reveal the fascinating, frustrating, and sometimes heartbreaking reality behind one of television's most beloved comedies. Gilligan's Island succeeded despite its cast's reservations, its production problems, and its studio's lack of faith. It became a cultural phenomenon that has outlasted most serious dramas from its era. Jerry Van Dyke missed out on television immortality for a show about a talking car. Dawn Wells became wealthy because her husband read contracts carefully. Natalie Schaefer hid her age so well that the truth wasn't discovered until after her death. And through it all, 7 actors created something magical that continues to make people laugh more than 50 years later. The real secret of Gilligan's Island isn't any of the facts I've shared today. It's this. Sometimes the most unlikely combinations of people, working under the most challenging circumstances, create art that lasts forever. Just like those castaways on their 3-hour tour, the cast of Gilligan's Island was thrown together by circumstances beyond their control. And just like those fictional characters, they made the best of their situation and created something beautiful. Now remember that prediction I made at the beginning. Did I deliver on my promise about the cast member who got rich from syndication? If so, show me some love with that like button and let me know in the comments which secret shocked you the most. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into television history, subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories that will change how you see your favorite shows forever. Until next time, keep exploring the islands of entertainment history. Trust me, there are always more secrets waiting to be discovered.